Big breaking news coming out of the NFL this morning. The Arizona Cardinals defensive lineman and future Hall of Famer J.J. Watt says he'll be retiring at the end of the season. Watt's a three-time Defensive Player of the Year, a five-time All-Pro, and was a 2017 recipient of the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. The accolades go on for days. Watt spent the first 10 years of his career with the Houston Texans, where he's the franchise's all-time leader in sacks, tackles for loss, forced fumbles, and fumble recoveries. Watt made that announcement via Twitter this morning with this note right here. Koa's first ever NFL game, that's his son. My last ever NFL home game. My heart is filled with nothing but love and gratitude. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. You see there J.J. Watt with his family on the sideline following the Chiefs game to the Bucs. Cardinals game. Pete Prisco joins us now. Pete, your initial reaction when you hear this news, he just kind of drops it off via Twitter. We didn't really know that it was coming. Are you surprised?
Well, no, not really. I mean, look, J.J. Watt had an unbelievable career, but his body has been beat up. And I remember way back in the day talking to him before he was even married or even found a wife about him wanting to have a family and be one of those guys that could enjoy life after football. And I think when you get beat up the way he's been beat up in his career, I think once you have a child, and he just recently had a child, I think that changes your perspective, it changes your priority. And so for that reason, am I surprised? No. Am I surprised he announced it now? Yes. But again, when your body gets beat up like that, I think ultimately you look down the road, particularly after you have a child.
Watt, 33 years old, announcing his retirement now, of course, in his second season with the Cardinals. The play on the field for Arizona certainly hasn't gone the way that he would have hoped, especially this year. But what will it be that you remember most about Watt? Because remember, at his best when he was with those Texans, just an absolute force.
He was unblockable. There were times where he was completely unblockable. He had the ability to make offensive linemen embarrass offensive linemen. He was so quick and his technique was outstanding, and he could do things, you weren't supposed to do at times. He would jump around blocks and still be able to come down the line and make plays. He's one of the greatest defensive players who ever played in this league. And for a period of time, like I said, he was unblockable because he was so fast and so quick and so athletic, and he used his hands. He was great at getting around blocks. And I'm telling you, there were times where you watched him on tape and you said, boy, he probably shouldn't be doing that, but he'd jump around a block and make a play. That's how athletic he was. That's how quick he was. And there aren't a lot of guys like him over the course of history who could get away with some of the things he did because he was such a phenomenal athlete and so good with his ability to jump up the field and penetrate the offense.
9.5 sacks for him this season total in his career so far, 111.5 sacks. Where does he rank for you all time amongst pass rushers in the NFL?
Well, it's hard to put him as a pure pass rusher because he played inside, he played outside. He didn't exactly stand up and rush the passer like guys like Lawrence Taylor. But when you talk about down defensive linemen, he's one of the best to ever play the game. You talk about Mean Joe Green and Aaron Donald's now in that conversation. And there's been a lot of really good inside. Alan Page, who was an MVP way back in the day as a defensive player. You talk about the great defensive lineman, but J.J. Watt's right up there with him. You'd like to have seen more of him. Again, the injuries impacted his career greatly. I shudder to think how good his numbers would have been if he didn't get all those injuries. But J.J. Watt, phenomenal player, arguably one of the 5, 6, 7 best inside pass rushers to ever play the game.
Yeah, you mentioned those injuries. Played in just 7 games last season back in 2019, 8 games, 3 in 2016 and 5 in 2017. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer for sure, right?
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. People love to put first ballot, they rush to that. But he'll get in, and he should probably get in on the first ballot. But it's hard to say who's ever in that class with him. But there's no doubt he will be getting a bust in Canton. He should be getting a bust in Canton. 3-time Defensive Player of the Year honors. That tells you how special he was as a player. I loved watching him. He was a joy to cover when you were around him. He was a pro's pro from the time he came into the league, and the NFL is worse off by not having guys like J.J. Watt playing football.
Yeah, Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner as well. J.J. Watt announcing his retirement. Pete Prisco, thank you very much for joining on this. On the other side of the break, we'll have Lige Duzable. But first, that announcement coming via Twitter from J.J. Watt. There's a tweet right there, his last ever NFL home game. Heart filled with nothing but love and gratitude there. Spent time with his friends and family out there on the field. J.J. Watt, 33 years old, announcing his retirement. We'll be back on the other side with a lot more on the career of J.J. Watt coming to a close after the season.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.